Hi guys, welcome to Coding Ninja's YouTube channel, and in this video we are going to discuss that in upcoming summer vacations how you can utilize your time and prepare yourself for web development journey. So obviously you need an ample amount of time to build your projects that you want to showcase in your resume so that you can stand out as a profile of yours for the developer. And also, if you are working already or if you have worked upon the stacks previously in web development, so you can use this time to skill up yourself as a developer with the new available stacks which are available. I hope I'm audible enough. If someone in the chat can quickly just tell me and greet me with a hi. Okay, great. So, guys, at our YouTube channel, what we always try is to get you the best content that is available out there. So do support us by liking our streams, by sharing it with your friends, and do subscribe to our channel. So let's come back. So we will discuss that how you can correctly utilize your time in the summer break and so that you can prepare yourself for web development. And as a web developer, there are a few topics that you need to cover, and there can be, you can follow a personal roadmap for yourself. In the previous session I displayed a roadmap which I would be using in this session too. So I think the link would already be there in the description. If it's not, you can just ping me and I'll just share it in the chat again. Okay, so coming back, what is web development? And as a web developer, even if you're fully aware of what stack you're using and if you are, thorough with whatever you've learned, there is this stack is always evolving, and uh, every year and every few months, there is a new upgrade in whatever stack a person is using. So the next question that comes into mind is ki, if I'm trying to be a web developer, is utilizing my entire break to, focus on just web development, is that a good idea? Yes, if you are focusing on building your career as a web developer, you because as a college are now in offline mode, there is a higher dependency that you're not getting time, or you're not able to utilize your time in day-to-day life. You can't manage college, DSA, web development all together as of one. So giving web development a few days, a few weeks would be the best idea, because this would help you guys to have good projects in your resume. You can take part in as much as hackathons you can. And what hackathons do is hackathons allow you to create bond with new people out in the world. You just don't have to restrict yourself just taking part in hackathons which are being held in the country, but you can take part in hackathons which are there in the entire world. So meet new people, learn something from them, and so that you can keep yourself updated forever. So in web development, we generally have three parts. There is front-end web developer, back-end web developer, and full stack developer. So this is not the entire development process. As you evolve, there is a recent growth in the need of UI UX developers. Apart from that, a new field has come up, that is DevOps engineers or DevOps developers. So there are lines and which we weren't familiar with in the previous years, but now they have just taken a boom, and people and companies are hiring for these profiles extensively. So front end, back end, and full stack web developer are all the skills that you need as a developer to get yourself started with web development. Now, there are 5 technologies which you should focus as a developer, and these are the most highly recommended technologies are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React.js, Node.js, or you can also start with Next.js. So in order to just master these 5 things, you can count these on your hands, and you should not avoid these stacks, at least when you're starting your career as a web development, because HTML defines the content, the CSS you use defines how you want your page to look like, and the JavaScript defines the behavior, or it adds the functionality to your website. And as you guys already know, React.js is a technology which simplifies creating user interface. It is a technology that is used for building applications, and it makes our life as a developer much easier in many different ways. There is no alternative to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but you always have different alternatives when there is talk about which stack or what you want to start with, as to develop an application. So you have React, you have Angular, you have Vue. So people have heard about these 3 names often, right? I mean, if you're not that new to start, if you're not that new to the field of web development, you must know about React.js, Vue.js, and AngularJS. So what happened is that Vue and Angular were used extensively in the past years. React just overtook those. So for now, React is the most popular framework, and it is the most talked about. People are hiring massively about for React.js developers, and yeah, it's the most used framework in today's era. But apart from React, we have other frameworks like Svelte, we have Next.js. So these are a few upgradations which React has introduced, and Svelte is a framework that has been developed by Vercel, and Vercel also owns the Next.js platform. So Next.js is again nothing but a framework of React itself, and you guys can, like, if you are web developers, if you're familiar with React, if you move yourself towards Next or Svelte, you would find that these frameworks are much easier than React. But yeah, as a beginner, as if you're starting a journey into web development, I would recommend you to start with React.js. Do not just straight up start with their libraries, because you'll not be able to understand what you're working on with. So yeah, and as I said, React is a web application framework, and React, with the use of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can just use these 3 core technologies to work upon any framework, any application you want, just to build the front end part at least. So using these 3 technologies, you can complete that. Now let's come up a bit before that. If I am absolute beginner, what path should I follow, or what are the languages required for any path? So if you have no knowledge about DSA, I would not recommend you to take a shift at web development and start pursuing web development. I would only recommend people who are thorough with DSA, who practice regularly, who know the basics and are in their third or second year and have a good hold on their DSA to shift into web development. Because if you're absolute beginners at DSA, then there is no point to shift to yourself or your entire focus to web development. Because even in web development, when you sit for interviews, you would be questioned on DSA skills too. So I recommend to have at least medium level knowledge about DSA. You should be familiar with what kind of at least the data structures we're using and their algorithm, the famous algorithms, and you're able to solve lead code problems, not high level, but at least medium level. Because if you don't have enough time to prepare yourself at the end, you can revise these concepts and you can sit for the interviews for the web development part at least. Now, if you're brand new to coding, I would suggest you to again start with DSA, finalize which language you want to start with, and then slowly move towards front-end development, back-end development, DevOps engineering, and to study JavaScript, advanced JavaScript, and all. Okay, so now a few things as a beginner in web development you should need to know is a few command line uh, commands. Command line, you should have a good hold on whatever command you're using. So terminal or command line is important to understand how you can run your code in your systems, and you should be able to navigate, execute the required commands, because the better hold you had on the command line, the more efficient you would be as a developer. I can simply open a VS Code project using command line, and it's easy, it's simple for me as a developer. I don't have to open VS Code, go on open, select the project. So that takes time. And as a developer, time is very less, and you value time. So you want your task to be done quickly. So as I said, you should have a good hold on commands, because at the end you need those to execute your programs, right? Now, if you're brand new, again, you would need a text editor. You would need some place you can practice the stuff you're learning. So if you're starting with as a beginner to development, you always can use code.org. You can use free code camp to learn about these things. You can evaluate your web development programs on codepen.io. So CodePen is a framework where you can freely practice your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and any other framework. You just have to select that in the uh, platform itself. So you have CodePen, you have uh, Sandbox, and yeah, so you have Code Sandbox for React.js and Angular and all other frameworks. So I hope a few of the things are clear to you by now. Uh, I'll resume to the stuff I have prepared in 5 minutes. In the meanwhile, I will just quickly give a look in the chat. Okay, so someone has asked if they can learn basics of backend development in a month. Yes, a month is an ample amount of time to at least get you familiarized with the basics part of the backend development. The only thing that would be required is you have a good hold on what SQL commands are, so that you can connect the backend with the SQL and you're able to uh, use that in the application. How much time it takes to learn JavaScript? JavaScript, at least start with the basics. Start with by learning the functionality of the language, how you can create animation, how you can connect JavaScript to the HTML, CSS, and yeah, how you can create routes through that. So at least learn the basics of the language. You can dive later into creating beautiful animation, the parallax effect, because all of these are again dependent on the CSS. So you need to master CSS and JavaScript simultaneously to get a better hold on the language. It depends upon what your learning scale is, how much you practice, and how many projects you are building. Guys, always make sure when you are adding projects in your resume, you are not just simply adding those projects which are very common, so that if you're applying for a web developer role, the interviewer or someone who's reviewing your resume won't be interested in your profile if they see projects which have already been uh, are very common as and a few of the students what they do is they create some project in their college and they add that too, so it's not recommended. Management systems are not considered as projects related to web development now. So it's better you add projects that showcase your skills, that showcase your stack. So make sure you're just not copying the code because then you'll be cross-questioned. You'll not be able to, answer each and every question about the project, and that would be a bad effect on you too. What are good projects for full stack in the last semester? Uh, You can create full stack applications like you can create a website where if you are not well versed with ML or AI, all you can do is you can create a catalog browsing website. Like you can create a clone of any famous website. You can create a Spotify clone. You can create a Amazon clone. But yeah, make sure you don't name these projects as Spotify clone, Amazon clone, because as I said, these are common projects. Okay, you can is just easily find these project by giving a simple YouTube search. So don't do that. Don't make your project look that it's from somewhere else. What you can do is you can create some catalog browsing website of let's say you're selling anything, any other thing, but don't make your website look as similar as to what Amazon looks like or as similar to as Flipkart looks like, because again, um, copying some website is not showcasing your own work. It should represent your own skills. So make sure you add some kind of animation that makes your project looks much better as a user interface, and you can create same catalog browsing too, but yeah, make sure to add some sort of functionality that is not present there in the current website you are trying to build a clone of. So yeah, some good projects for full stack would be as I said, catalog browsing websites. You can create a clone of Spotify. You can create a terminal, or you can create a project that helps people learn about terminal, because terminal or command line is not something every developer is familiar with when they're starting. So a first year student might not be familiar with the commands as pwd, ls, cd. So you can create a framework, you can create a website that helps user understand these commands, and yeah, that is it. So these are a few examples which you can work upon. Can I get a good job as a web developer in a campus placement? It depends on what college you're from. As you're talking about campus placement, I am not familiar with what kind of companies that are coming to your college. But yeah, if you have the skills, you can get uh, a job anywhere, offline, off campus, or on campus. It hardly makes a difference. Right time for internship is to apply at the end of your second year or at the beginning of your third year, because you don't have that much of workload as a second year student. And yeah, because in third year too, you have to submit projects and all in the college. So yeah, second year end and third year beginning is the best time to apply for internships. So easy projects using Java could be anything. You can create a uh, any management system using Java, and yeah, you can create any application that gets user information is a CRUD based application. So at least try to create a CRUD based application. What is CRUD? Can anyone tell me what is CRUD? CRUD. If you are a web developer, you would be familiar with this keyword. And yes, anyone can get a job in any technology they want. It hardly depends on what uh, graduate degree you have, because if you're not applying for on campus, if you're applying off campus, all you need is skills. Yes, I write create, read, update, and delete. Okay, so I'll just quickly share the previous roadmap we had, and I hope the screen is visible, guys. Okay, so as I was saying, full stack web development. Full stack web development may we have different frameworks. We have UI UX development, you have front end development, back end development, and ops and data, that is DevOps engineers. So just please tell me if you can view the whimsical. Maybe can you be more appropriate with your question, since when is it on web development? I'm not able to figure it out. Since what is on web development? Okay. So you have these many frameworks inside web development. We have UI UX development, front end development, backend, and ops. So UI UX may, as of your summer break, I'm not insisting you to take part in UI UX development, but yeah, if someone is interested in, and if someone finds UI UX development essential, or if they want to make career out of there in UI UX development, it is a very good field to go into. If you are active on LinkedIn, you must be familiar with, there is a good amount of people who are getting paid as a UI UX developer too. They're not just in, because as when you come into college, when you're a complete beginner, you might not be familiarized with the concepts about all of these fields. You can be a UI UX developer. You just have to be good enough to understand the psychological need of a product, how you can make that product so attractive so that users are tempted to explore through the app again and again. You should be familiar with the design philosophy, and you should do a good amount of research to understand the product, to build it according of the users understanding. And you should test the solution, you should test the app. And yes, obviously you should be good in design part too. You should have a good hold of UX tools, the flowchart tools, how you can create a mind map, how you can create a wireframe of a website, how you can create a wireframe of an application. So there are many other softwares like Adobe XD, which can be used for UI UX development. Okay, so guys, I'll take another break at 7:40 to answer your queries, and in the meanwhile, just bear with me, just listen to what I have prepared, because this is something that would help you as a developer. Okay, so this was just UI UX development part. Now coming to front end development. At least in your summer break, I would recommend you to be thorough with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. At least be clear with the basics part. Because if you're clear with the basics part and you've practiced enough, you can swiftly move a shift and you can manage your time by just creating projects. Sitting and learning the entire language, the entire framework is a difficult task. But yeah, coding your projects is not that difficult because when you already have the hold of your language you're working with, just designing and creating a project wouldn't take as long as learning and working along daily would. So at least in your summer break, be clear with the basics of web development if you're completely new to the stack. If not, start exploring these technologies. Start exploring GitHub, how you can use GitHub, what are CSS preprocessors. Right now, if you have a little bit knowledge about web development, you must have heard about Sass framework, Sass CSS. Someone is using Sass in their website. And again, being a web developer is not just creating the website. As we all know, cyber security, we are dealing with technology, so we have to be secure in that too. In the real world, we're not lenient with our own belongings, right? You must not leave your documents lying there, and in the college, you must not leave your documents in anywhere, right? And you won't just forget about these things. So you have to be, that good even with the things, even with the belongings in the technical part, in the technical world. So web security is something as a developer you should be familiarized with. Why to prefer HTTPS over HTTP, when to use HTTPS. If you know, in routing in React.js, we use HTTPS over HTTP. So why do we do this? And you should be familiarized with all this security part of the web too. What is SEO optimization? What is what kind of SSL certificates we need to make our to make our application or website secure. Now, ये basics था, just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is just the basic part. JavaScript has its own frameworks, right? That's what we just talked initially about: React.js, Vue.js, and Angular. React.js is something, as I said, is very popular, and most of the people, most of the students, most of the companies are hiring just for React.js developers too. Vue.js and AngularJS are still famous if you are looking for jobs in Singapore, if you want to explore Asia side of the part, Asia side of the world. There people still use Vue.js, but yeah, most of the people are using React.js. If you're targeting companies, if you're targeting FAANG companies, there people are using React.js. I'm talking about a web developer, not as a software engineer. Okay, so if someone is already familiarized with basics of JavaScript and all, and then you are getting the summer break, I would recommend you to explore React.js. Just get yourself familiarized with the components part. What is, at least, the introduction to React part. React is an open source front-end JavaScript library that is used for that is used for building user connections or UI components. So React.js, as I hope you all know, is maintained by Facebook and a community of individual developers which belong to other companies. So why is React so boom? Why is React so famous? It is because it can be used for creating simple single page or mobile applications. Uh, so the exact framework can be used for React Native, as you know, for mobile development, and React JS can be used for single page website or a multi-page application. So React.js is only concerned with the management of the state, and it provides and the that nation to the DOM. So creating a React application allows us, and it often requires an additional router libraries for some customer services which we need. So if you are familiar with React, you would know that React router is now being updated to some other framework, and we have alternatives that we can use. It's a recent update in React. So you should always be familiarized with what the stack is updating. And yeah, okay. And again, yeah, you should be familiarized with hooks, uh, Redux, React router, React hook form. So hook form is nothing but to create elaborative forms in React.js. Then you have CSS modules. So after getting a good hold on React.js, as someone who's new, you can explore CSS modules in React.js. Styling is a bit different in React. The framework which we use in HTML classes, how we define and build CSS, that is not possible in React. We have to create class name and we have to create a class component. So yeah, you just have to take care of that. You just have to understand what's the difference between HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and how can I use these in React. So just join these two and be thorough with whatever you're learning. I'm not asking you to build as many as projects in the summertime. I'm asking you to just be thorough with the stack you can learn, and you can spend time in exploring the stack. You can spend time in creating some small applications rather than jumping to big projects you've decided upon, because you can build something after you have learned that, right? You cannot start building before you have learned something. So just make sure you are dealing with that, and you always have alternatives. I'm not asking you to just stick with React.js. It's your personal choice. You can start with Vue.js, you can start with Angular, but yeah, what people are in need of, what is current status in development part, what people are expecting a web developer to know is React for now. Okay, as I was talking, if you are already familiarized with the React.js, if you have ample amount of time left, let's say you have covered this part in 2 weeks, well, that's not possible, but if you still manage it, you had some knowledge, you just wanted to explore a bit about the basics again. So if you have managed to complete this in 2, or let's say at max 3 weeks, you can start exploring CSS frameworks, how you can use Tailwind CSS with React.js. You can start this parallelly because this will help you build your applications with much better interface, with much better uh, design as per design perspective. Okay, for now, Tailwind CSS, Bootstrap is less used with React. Materialized CSS, that is Material UI, and Tailwind CSS are the two most used CSS modules in React.js. Okay, so this is server-side rendering, and server-side rendering, what we mean by server-side rendering is that you often would have heard about that, when I want my application to send quick responses and I don't want any delays in that. So that is known as server-side rendering. So when you're using React.js, React.js has introduced, as I said, Vercel has introduced this Next.js framework. It is a framework of React itself, and it's a library, and it creates much better single page server-side rendering applications which offer a faster interface between the client and the server. Okay, so if you are familiar with React, I would recommend you to start Next.js. If you're using Vue, then Next.js. If Angular, then you have Universal. Okay, so I think this link is already there in the description. If it's not, just please tell me. I'll just post this in the chat. Now, before starting with backend developer, I'll just quickly take a look in the chat and see if there are any further doubts. Okay, and I hope I have not missed out. So, as I said, the popular client-side libraries are React, Angular, and Vue, and all of these are written in JavaScript. So, knowing JavaScript is thoroughly knowing JavaScript thoroughly is very essential to level up yourself and have the required skills that you need to build complex applications. Okay, so once you have a good foundation in JavaScript, then you should, you can upgrade yourself and you can start with these client-side libraries. So before JavaScript, I would recommend you have a good knowledge about HTML and CSS because HTML is the skeleton. And if you're not cleared with the base, if you're not cleared with the skeleton of the application, you won't be able to dive in and you won't be able to create a complex application over there. So it's very important that you have a good hold of among the three libraries I told, React, Vue, and Angular. It's very important that you know one of these libraries as opposed to opposed to trying of learning these all because there is no need to learn all of these. Just learn one of the uh, these component model with the libraries, you would be good enough to get started with your professional journey as a front-end developer. React, I said, as is the most popular and it's something that every company is using for now. So yeah, you can start with React. Vue is also there. It's also present. It's getting a slight hold, But yeah, React is on another level. Angular is something that has gone dead over the past few years. But as I said, if there is an application that is still running on Angular, the company would need Angular developers, right? So now before going to the backend part, I'll just see the chat here. Okay, so someone has asked, hi ma'am, I'm good in development. Should I have to practice on DSA? Yes, Ayush, it's important that you practice on DSA because uh, DSA skills are something that you would be questioned upon when you are giving your interviews as a web developer because even in the backend part, you work with queues, you work with stacks. So it's important that you're familiarized with what all data structures in there and how you are using those in your projects. So can you please recommend any good courses for UI UX designers? I am not personally that familiarized with the concept. Just I would recommend you to give just to try free code camp or apart from that, try Udemy, try YouTube. You would get ample amount of resources over there. I am not a UI UX designer, so I'm not the best person to answer this question. Vish, I think the link is there in the description. If not, let me just quickly check. I'll just quickly paste here it in the chat. Okay, I think the link is not there. I'll just paste the link here in the chat. Just give me a second. I have put the link out here in the chat, guys. Uh, just please see to it. You can join the whimsical and you can view the chat over there. No, Naman, 2 months is not a sufficient time to learn or to master the entire web development. If you are complete beginner, just start with the basics. Start getting your basics clear. Start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Do not miss out on any part. Do not assume that HTML is very easy. I don't need to learn that. I can simply start with JS and I can learn by side by side. Do not do that. Start by as a complete beginner and you would see that how things are done. So you would find interesting, you find things interesting. But if you're starting, if you're missing out on things, at the end, when you're not able to code, when you're not able to understand what's going on, you would be pissed and you would be, this is not the deal for me. I cannot be a web developer. So you would start questioning your skills. So it's better to get a hold of these things when you can, when you have time. Utilize this time and please start this uh, stack as soon as it's possible. If you are if you have some knowledge about the front end part, if you are familiar with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, only and only then move on with the React libraries and with the JavaScript libraries and all. So yeah, apart from that, you can, you can explore backend too, side by side. It's not necessary to start with front end and complete the React.js and after that start with the backend part. You can start side by side and, just all you need is to get a few familiarity about what HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is, how you can build projects using these. Do not waste your time in creating something that would take time. Create simple projects. But yeah, do not copy paste your code. That wouldn't be helpful to you in any manner. So just please look out for that and do not just waste your time too. As I said, DSA is important for you to get selected into any company. It's important for a backend developer to understand when and where to use a stack, how to use a stack, and again, it's generally important for your interviews. Okay. Development versus open source. If you don't have enough knowledge about these stacks, you won't be able to participate in open source because open source, there is a lot of dependency upon languages like React.js. You should be familiarized with all of these languages. You cannot start open source when you do not know development. So yeah, development is important. Without DSC, you can aim for internships as a web developer, but just as a front-end web developer, you won't be able to get a good internship or without DSA. So yeah, you can try to get internship as a front-end developer if you want to, but yeah, it's necessary that you are good in DSA. Uh, I would recommend to not learn PHP. It's not used that much now. But again, if you are working in a company that is using PHP, it's a other thing. But yeah, it's better to shift your language, shift your stack. PHP is something that was used before, so I don't think anyone uses PHP. because we have different frameworks. We have JavaScript, we have Node.js. So all of these frameworks have overpowered PHP over the past few years. And again, guys, it's not just React.js uh, and all for development, HTML, CSS. We have Django framework too. So yeah, if you are good with Python, you can start with Django. Okay, so let's move on with the backend development. Now, as for a backend development, your backend or server can be written in any language, and it is recommended if you're a beginner, you can start with Node.js or JavaScript since it is relatively easier to learn, but also it's powerful and it can be used for complex complex application too. And in addition, you can easily transition between the front end application and the back end part because you will be using the same language. So there are other languages like, as you can see on screen, we have Java, we have Python, we have Go, we have Ruby on Rails, we have Rust, we have C hash, and these are much complex languages. Go is a tough language. Same goes with C hash. So it's recommended if you are good with Java, then again you have to start with different frameworks. You have to start with Spring Boot, Maven, and all that. So it's recommended, or it's mostly, people use Node.js or JavaScript for backend part. So Node.js is how we execute JavaScript outside the browser, and this can be used in order to build the APIs and on the backend part or to on the server part. So you can find Node.js courses easily on YouTube. If you're new with the backend development, you can find Node.js courses on YouTube. You can find these courses on code.org, on Free Code Camp. There is not a definitive need for to go with, the paid courses. You can start with free courses which are available on YouTube. If you find those interesting or if you're not able to cope up with those, only and only then I would recommend you to buy a course for yourself. Or if you are aiming for placement assistant, only and only then go for paid courses and research about the company you are aiming to. You can rely on coding ninjas courses. They are good. They offer good placement assistance. But yeah, it's totally your call. Now, as this was learning a coding language, as a backend developer, what all is necessary for you to learn? Again, you should have good knowledge about how internet works, different protocols which we need to connect to the internet, what all certificates we need to host our website. You should have a good knowledge about basics of front end. Just a basic of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is good to go when you have to start with backend development. And again, you should know OS and you should have a general knowledge about OS and networking because as a backend developer, it is your job to see how much memory your application is taking when it is getting deployed. And that's the reason you should have a knowledge about your OS, what how much memory is it taking, how is memory managed in the system. So yeah. Now you have databases. Okay, so databases, there are two types of databases. You have relational databases and non-relational databases. Now, what are relational databases? You have PostgreSQL and you have MySQL. So these are the two most common, most top SQL implementation, and these are the most used uh, databases in companies. So these are the most utilized databases, and you would be working with those if you are getting hired in a company and if you're getting placed somewhere. So Postgre and MySQL are the two databases which are used a lot. And now coming a bit back, I haven't defined databases, I forgot. So databases is something that is a permanent storage for your particular application. So when we connect backend and we make a query against the database using an API call, there are, as I said, two common type of databases which are used: SQL or relational database and NoSQL or non-relational databases. So where do we use SQL and where do we use NoSQL? SQL is generally used when there is a lot of complex dependency among the tables in your application. So let's say you have a user, you have an admin, you have, let's say you are creating a website for books retailing. So you have a books where all the details for books are stored. Then you have orders, then you have uh, anything, you can create a user admin. Then we have, I'm so sorry, yeah. So then as I said, we're creating a books catalog. So we have a books table. So when there is a lot of dependency among these tables, when books table is calling user table again and again, or admin table again and again is being called upon, so you can rely on relational databases. But when you have small scale applications that do not have much of a dependency among each other, or they have no dependency among each other, then you can use NoSQL tables. And in NoSQL, one of the most popular databases is MongoDB. It is very easy to use. Or DynamoDB, it's an AWS based service, it's an Amazon based service. So what is the difference between relational and DBMS? Relational where you be dependent upon completely upon the SQL commands, whereas in NoSQL you would have a cleaner UI. If you have used MongoDB in past, there is MongoDB Compass that offers a very clean UI where you can easily create tables, where you can map easily how many data entries are being fetched into the tables by simply it would be an Excel type of view. So you can see all the tables, you can see the rows, the columns, what is getting stored, and as well as you can see a JSON file adjacent to it. So there is no need to use SQL to call for or to see what all data you need. Okay. Mongo is the most popular NoSQL database and it is used extensively with Node. It stores data in documents which are usually key and value pairs, which are easily mapped to JSON and JavaScript objects. So again, MongoDB, you can find the tutorial easily on YouTube. As web development is a technology that is so vast and is so in trend, you can find these tutorials easily. Okay. Now for backend, Python is also a language people use and it is easy. It is utilized extensively by tech giants and startups for backends, data science, and in fact even for scripting and automating. So Python's role is not just limited for creating web application. You can create projects related to data science. You can create automated script. You can automate your task easily. And that is why Python is so in trend and people are using Python too. And yes, if you're targeting companies like Fang, and if you're familiar with Python, it's good to go. They won't ask you to shift your language to Java or to change your stack to C++. They are completely familiar, completely okay with you working in Python. Now, Go is something that is new. It is ideal for building services, but again, it is difficult as when it is compared to Node.js or Python. So people do use Go. It is incredibly user or developer friendly. I'll say it is statically type good language, but again, it has seen a rapid adoption among past few years. Uh, the only drawback is it's difficult as compared to what backend languages we already have. So if you are familiarized with these, and if you are opting or if you want to explore a new stack, you can start with Go. Go is in trend, is essential as a advanced developer. If in upcoming years, if you try to shift, if you're trying to go for a job shift, Go is something that is being asked in interviews too. So yeah, majorly by tech giants because uh yeah, if you're aiming for Google, Go is something they'll be looking forward in a backend or a front end developer. Now this was all about the backend development part. Yeah, APIs is something that you should be familiarized with. This is the most important part in backend development because through APIs is which we are fetching the data, we are connecting our application to the front end and the server. And yeah, so you have authentication, you have REST APIs, you have SOAP APIs, and you have JSON APIs. Okay, yeah. Now let's get back to the last topic that is DevOps. So the field of DevOps is very broad, and the choices we make as a DevOps engineer impact every engineering team. It impacts from straight to a you know UI designer to the backend team. Every engineering team that is there in the company, DevOps is highly, every impact they make would, depend on these teams and in fact would impact these teams. So some of the essential topics which is required as a DevOps engineer is networking or OS or Linux basics. So Linux is used on I estimately 70% plus servers, and it is highly likely that you would use this as a DevOps engineer. So if you are someone who wants to work by hosting their application, you want to uh, work as a DevOps engineer. So first of all, DevOps manages the infrastructure of a company. They set up the processes to deploy your web application. They manage the traffic to the site. They focus on allowing other teams to get code into production as fast as it is possible, and they make sure that the servers are always up and running while sending content to the end user. And this process is to be done as quickly as it's possible because the time taken by the server and sending it back to the client should be as less as it could be. So this is a task that is dependent upon on DevOps engineer. So if you're not someone who is looking to work with front end, back end, you can always work as a DevOps engineer. Uh, all you need to know is Linux. You should be good with Linux command because Linux in today's era is almost on 70% plus servers, and it is highly likely that you would use Linux as a DevOps engineer in the company you would be getting. So it is very important to thoroughly understand how Linux works, what commands are used in Linux, and it should be, you know, this should be number one priority as a DevOps engineer, that you are familiarized with Linux command and you know the basics about how Linux works. Now, coming to security. So making sure that our entire data is secure, our entire cloud is secure and is encrypted. It should also set up the APIs in such a manner that all the content is reserved through HTTPS and is not susceptible to any common attack. So making sure that our website is secured is not only just a task for a front-end developer or a back-end developer. The most of the work is upon a DevOps engineer. So the security of the application, security of the authentication you're trying to build is completely in the hands of a DevOps engineer. Then you should be familiarized with the command line or terminals which we use. So we introduce the command line, uh, and you would be introduced with the command line when you're starting with the development. When you're starting as a front-end engineer or a back-end developer too, you must have a grasp about terminal, but it is a lot more essential for a DevOps engineer, because as a DevOps engineer, you should thoroughly understand how terminal works, how Linux command work, and how you can host using SSH into remote servers. So, because as a DevOps engineer, you all write scripts and you automate the programs for the entire company. And there is a lot more task which, if you're not as a DevOps engineer, if you're not a beginner, at least you should be familiarized with these three. You should have a good knowledge about cloud providers. You should understand how to manage servers and cloud using one of the popular providers. It could be anything. It could be AWS. It could be Google Cloud providers. It could be Azure, Microsoft Azure. Uh, then again, as I said, you will be writing script, so you should have a good hold on any scripting language, may that be Java, Python, or Ruby. So, yeah, at least this much as a DevOps engineer in your summer breaks you can target. Okay, so this is something that I had prepared for. Now I'll just answer a few of the questions in the chat. Should we learn 100% JS to learn React? No, I'll not say you should know advanced JS, but yes, basic understanding about how JS works. You are able to build projects using JavaScript is essential. So only and only then move towards React when you are satisfied with your knowledge about JavaScript. So you completed your second year, but you're still struggling to learn coding. Just know Java and Python basics. I love to learn front end, which would add weightage to my job application. Uh, I would recommend you to just master any one of the languages, Java or Python. Using Java or Python only, you can create web applications too. If you're going with Python, you can start with Django and all, or if you want to make a swift shift to HTML, JS, and JavaScript, it's totally your call. Yeah, but yeah, I recommend you to have at least medium level hold upon any language, either it be Java, C++, or Python. Okay, so how much time required for preparation of a FAM company? It depends upon what kind of job role you're looking for. If an SD role, you need your entire focus on the DSA part. You should have good amount of projects in your resume so that at least you get shortlisted. So yeah, a good hold on programming languages is essential, and your projects could be of any field. It does not depends that it should be a React based model. It should be a full stack application. It could be anything. It could be an ML model you have trained to perform some task. So just make sure that is there in your resume. Apart from that, spend at least 6 months practicing enough questions, and make sure your basics is clear, because if your basics is clear, practicing enough questions, practice questions daily, that would be enough. There is not much required to crack FANG. You should just be thorough with whatever questions you are doing. You're not copying the code from somewhere, and yeah, that's what matters actually. Go for hints when you're not able to solve the problem, but don't rely on them. Take hints from the solution. In coding, even to add two numbers, there is at least three or four ways to do this in a programming language. So you don't have to use the same code to understand the logic, modify the code according to your application, according to your need, according to your hold on the language. So, in that manner, you would understand the logic, you would write the code, and that code would be in your brain, because you write the code you write and the code you copy has a vast difference. The code you copy and just is placed in the compiler and just click on submit, it just vanishes then and there. But the code you write, you utilizing the 10 minutes time, utilizing your brain, utilizing what to do now, what to do now, the questions you have in the mind continuously, makes you prepared about, makes you help remember that concept. So don't copy the code. Okay, try it yourself. Try changing this language. That would help actually. So how much time it should take for completing the full stack coding ninjas course? It has deadlines every week, so you would be very regular with your course when you're not missing the deadline. So make sure you don't miss any deadlines. It has some kind of penalty too. So when you miss for a week, there is 50% penalty. I'm not sure if I'm stating the correct details. You can always check on the company's website for that. But yeah, it won't take that long because it is a much structured manner. And yeah, when you buy courses because you are looking for something that is much more structured. You don't have to find something from here and there. So yeah, you won't take that much of time. I guess at least 3 or 4 months, and you'd be good to go. Okay, guys, so that was it from my end. If there are still doubts pending from your end, you can always ping me on LinkedIn. You can post the doubts in the comment section. And if you did like the stream, if you find it interesting, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. So do like the video, guys. Thank you for joining in. Have a great day. Bye.